Chapter 1, The Girl with the Paper Hearts. The classroom smelled of crayons and cinnamon-scented sanitizer, the walls covered with construction paper hearts and glitter-covered name tags. Lily Hart crouched beside a tiny desk, gently coaxing a soft whisper from the newest student in her kindergarten class. Sophia Moretti didn't speak much. Her dark curls framed a solemn face, and her eyes, far too old for 5, watched the world like it might break her again. She sat quietly, her hands folded, her drawings always in grayscale while the others reached for rainbows. But today, Lily had coaxed a flicker of life from her. "You like making hearts?" Lily asked, holding up a lopsided paper one. Sophia nodded, almost imperceptibly, and reached for the safety scissors. The door creaked open. Every instinct in Lily's body went still. The man who stepped in didn't belong to a place filled with juice boxes and teddy bear posters. He was tall, dressed in a sharply tailored black coat, his dark eyes scanning the room like a wolf measuring threats. He moved like someone used to being feared, deliberate, silent, dangerous. "I'm here for Sophia," he said. His voice was low, the kind of smooth that could turn cold without warning. Lily stood slowly, instinctively placing a hand on Sophia's desk. "Are you her father?" "No," he said, eyes locking with hers. "Uncle Dante Moretti." The name struck something. Not recognition, not quite. Just a chill. She had read it on Sophia's file but hadn't expected this. Sophia stood and took his hand without hesitation. But she didn't smile. Didn't even glance at him. It wasn't love. It was habit. Lily walked them to the door, trying to shake off the tension thick in the air. "She's very bright," she offered. "Quiet, but she's warming up." "She doesn't need to warm up," Dante said. "She just needs to survive." The words weren't cruel, just honest. Raw. Like he'd forgotten how to dress them up. Lily bristled, uncertain how to respond. He glanced at her then. A flicker of interest. Not lust. Not kindness. Curiosity. As if she were some foreign object he couldn't quite place. Someone too soft for his world. "You're not like the others," he said. She frowned. "Others?" "Teachers. People." Before she could answer, he was gone, Sophia trailing behind, her little hand swallowed in his. Lily watched them leave, the door closing slowly behind them. Something about him unsettled her deeply. Not just his presence, but the way he looked at her like she was a puzzle with a heartbeat. She didn't know it yet, but that was the moment her life tilted off its axis. When light met shadow. And neither would ever be the same. Chapter 2, The Ice King's Warning. Rain slicked the pavement outside Lily's classroom windows, turning the playground into a field of glistening gray. Inside, children built towers from wooden blocks and argued over whose turn it was at the art table. Lily kept one eye on Sophia, who sat alone as always, sketching shadows with her pencil. The room quieted when the door opened. Dante Moretti stood there again, dressed in charcoal and stillness. A ghost in broad daylight. Lily's heart did something it shouldn't. "Twice in 1 week," she said lightly, trying to ignore the chill that swept in with him. "Sophia's fine." "I know," he said, stepping in. "I'm not here for her." Lily straightened, folding her arms as she met his gaze. "Then why are you here, Mr. Moretti?" He paused, as if searching for the right way to say something he didn't want to admit. Then he leaned closer, just enough to lower his voice. "You need to stay away from her." Her smile faded. "Excuse me? You don't know what kind of people surround this child. Who watches? Who waits? Sophia's life isn't normal." Lily swallowed hard. "That's not a reason to abandon her." "I'm not asking you to abandon her. I'm asking you not to get involved. For your own good." His voice was calm, but something coiled beneath it, violence, barely restrained. "I care about my students. All of them. And I care about the few people I haven't buried yet." There was silence between them. Heavy, unspeakable silence. Lily broke it with a whisper. "What happened to her mother?" Dante's jaw tensed. "She died." "How?" "You ask a lot of questions for someone who wants to live a quiet life." Lily didn't back down. "And you're very good at talking like the world is made of threats." He studied her, something flickering in his eyes, pain, or perhaps memory. "It is." Before she could respond, a child called out her name, and the moment shattered. Dante turned, glancing back at Sophia, who looked up but didn't smile. He left without another word. That night, as Lily locked her door and checked it twice, she couldn't shake his voice. She'd seen something behind those eyes, regret, maybe. Or grief. And for the first time, she wondered not just what Dante Moretti was, but who he used to be before he turned to ice. Chapter 3, cupcakes and gunpowder. The scent of vanilla and sugar filled the kindergarten hallway, mingling with glue sticks and washable markers. It was the annual Family and Friends Day, tables draped in gingham cloth, paper crowns on every desk, and a make-your-own cupcake station that had the kids bouncing with excitement. Lily smoothed her dress, forcing a smile that barely masked her nerves. She hadn't seen Dante in over a week, but Sophia had mentioned he might come today. "Uncle said he'll try, but he's always busy," she'd whispered. He wasn't just busy. He was dangerous. And then he appeared. No fanfare. No sound. Just Dante Moretti in a black shirt, sleeves rolled, tattoos just barely hidden beneath expensive fabric. His eyes scanned the room like he was calculating every exit and every threat, even as children tugged on their parents' hands and smeared frosting on their faces. Sophia's face lit up, not a smile, but something softer. She ran to him, and he crouched, letting her wrap her arms around his neck. Lily watched from the corner, cupcake knife in hand. "You came," Sophia whispered. "I always do," he said quietly. "Even if I stay in the shadows." He looked up, and locked eyes with Lily. Moments later, he approached her table. "You're covered in frosting," he said dryly. "Part of the job," she replied, offering him a cupcake with a swirl of blue icing. "Try not to look so suspicious around the 5-year-olds. They can smell fear." He huffed a low, amused breath. "It's not the children I worry about." Across the street, a dark SUV sat idle. Unmarked, windows tinted. A man inside lifted a camera. Inside the classroom, Lily guided Sophia and her classmates through decorating cupcakes. Dante watched, standing close but not too close. She noticed how his eyes never stayed still, darting from the windows, to the hallway, to the exits. His fingers twitched, like they missed the weight of a weapon. Outside, a rival crew watched the scene unfold. Dandy's second-in-command, 𝐬𝐝, stood near the school entrance, hand under his jacket, scanning the street. Halfway through the event, Dante leaned toward Lily. "You're being watched." She blinked. "By you?" He didn't smile. "Not just me. There are men outside who don't care about kids or cupcakes. You're in the picture now." Her blood ran cold. "Why? Because I care about a child? Because you're in my orbit. And that makes you vulnerable." Sophia tugged Lily's sleeve just then, smiling faintly. "I made you one," she said, holding out a misshapen cupcake with purple sprinkles. Lily's hand trembled as she took it, masking it with a grateful smile. Dante looked at both of them, Lily, radiant in her sweetness, and Sophia, holding a frosting-covered hope in her tiny hand, and something shifted in his gaze. He wanted to protect them. But he also knew what followed him. Later, when the children had left and the hallway lights dimmed, Dante spoke quietly to 𝐬𝐝. "Set extra eyes on the building. Someone's watching Lily Hart. And if they touch her..." He trailed off, his voice razor-sharp. "She's just a teacher," 𝐬𝐝 said. Dante looked out at the night. Not anymore. Chapter 4, A Soft Voice in a Harsh World. The rain came hard that night, drumming against the windows of Lily's modest apartment like impatient fingers. The wind howled, distant sirens echoing through the city like a warning. But inside Sophia's small guest bedroom, it was quiet, until the sobs began. Lily stirred from the couch, instinct pulling her to the room before thought could. Sophia sat upright in bed, eyes wide, cheeks wet, clutching the faded stuffed bear she never let go of. Her tiny frame trembled beneath the blankets. "Sophia," Lily whispered, kneeling beside her. "Sweetheart, it's just a storm. You're safe here." The little girl shook her head. He was shouting again. "In the dream." "Who was?" Sophia's voice was barely a breath. "The man who hurt Mommy." Lily froze. The words hung in the air like smoke, haunting, elusive. She gently pulled Sophia into her arms, rocking her slowly, brushing curls from her damp cheek. "No one's going to hurt you now," Lily promised, even as her own heart tightened. She didn't know what kind of world Sophia had come from, but she knew the shadows hadn't finished with her yet. Sophia eventually fell asleep again, cradled in safety that wouldn't last. Lily sat beside her, watching the rise and fall of her chest, wondering how a child so small could carry so much pain. She didn't hear the knock at first. It came again, 3 slow raps against the door. Lily opened it, barely peeking through the chain. Dante stood on the other side, soaked in rain, collar up, jaw clenched like he'd been fighting the storm with his bare hands. "Is she all right?" he asked. Lily hesitated, then stepped aside. She had a nightmare. About someone who hurt her mother. Dante didn't speak. He walked silently to the doorway of Sophia's room and watched her sleep from a distance, something raw flashing across his face. Do you know who she's talking about? Lily asked gently. Yes. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. She's starting to open up. To me. She needs more than protection. She needs healing. She needs to survive, Dante said again, the same cold line he always gave. But this time, there was a crack in it. Lily stepped closer. You don't have to do this alone. He looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes were tired but fierce, her voice calm, steady. She wasn't afraid of him. Or maybe she was, but chose to stay anyway. Without thinking, she placed her hand on his forearm. Just a touch. A jolt passed through him, not of electricity, but memory. The ghost of something he'd buried long ago. He looked at her hand. Then at her. Then gently stepped back, the connection severed. I'm dangerous, he said quietly. You don't know what you're inviting in. I don't believe that, she whispered. Not entirely. He left without another word. And Lily stood in the silence, her fingers still tingling from where she touched a man carved from ice. And felt the faintest flicker of warmth beneath. Chapter 5, The Hit List. It started with footsteps. Lily heard them behind her on the walk home, measured, steady, too casual to be innocent. She turned once, twice. No one. Just the soft echo of her own paranoia trilling behind her in the evening fog. But it wasn't paranoia. Not this time. The next day, her mailbox had been tampered with. Her spare tire slashed. Harmless, maybe, if not for the small white envelope taped to her apartment door with no return address, no stamp. Just her name written in block letters. Inside was a photograph. Her. Walking with Sophia outside the school. The back read, "You've been noticed." She dropped it like it burned. That night, as Lily double-locked her windows and checked the hallway for the third time, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Don't scream," Dandy's voice said before she could speak. "I'm outside." She opened the door to find him in his usual black, eyes sharper than glass. He didn't wait to be invited in. "You've been followed." "I know," she whispered, trembling. "They left a picture." "How did they even?" "They were testing you. Sending a warning." Lily's voice cracked. "Why me?" "Because you're visible now. To them. To everyone." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "They think you're my weakness." Her breath hitched. "Are you saying I am?" He met her gaze, no evasion, no mask. "Yes." She looked away, the truth slicing cleaner than any lie. Dante moved closer, voice low. "I tried to keep you out of this. I told you to keep your distance. I didn't know caring about a child would paint a target on my back. You cared about more than the child." The air between them pulsed, tension, heat, guilt. He turned to the window, scanning the street below. "You're not safe here anymore. I'm not running. You won't have to. I'll handle it." "But Lily." His voice dropped. "If something happens to you, I'll never forgive myself." The words stunned her. Not because of their intensity, but because of how raw they sounded. Like a confession from a man who didn't make them. Outside, headlights slowed in the distance. A car paused. Then moved on. Dandy's phone buzzed. He answered quickly, turning his back. "Put eyes on her building. Anyone gets close, I want their name, address, and the color of their blood." When he hung up, he turned to her, colder now. The mask back on. "I'm going to find out who sent that photo. And when I do, they'll wish they never learned your name." Lily didn't flinch. She only said, "I don't need revenge, Dante. I need this to stop." He looked at her, something flickering behind the hardness. "So do I." Then he walked out, leaving her with the shadows and the chilling realization. She wasn't just caught in Dante Moretti's orbit anymore. She was on someone's hit list. Chapter 6, The Man Behind the Mask. The name had been bothering her for days, Moretti. It echoed in her head like a word she wasn't supposed to know, a secret spoken too loudly in the wrong room. And when Lily finally typed it into a search engine, she realized why. Dante Moretti wasn't just Sophia's uncle. He was the Dante Moretti, head of the Moretti crime syndicate, heir to a bloody empire built on silence and fear. The articles were vague, the facts always alleged, but the pattern was undeniable. Money laundering. Racketeering. Unsolved murders. And photos, grainy surveillance shots, of him stepping out of limousines, whispering into the ears of men who never smiled. Lily stared at her laptop, her hand frozen on the mouse. She heard footsteps then, small ones. Sophia, in her pajamas, stood in the hallway. "I can't sleep," she whispered. Lily closed the laptop before the child could see the screen. "Come here, sweetheart." As Sophia curled beside her on the couch, Lily gently stroked her hair. The little girl trusted her. But did she even understand the world her uncle came from? Did she know why her mother had really died? Later that night, somewhere across town, Dante gripped the collar of a man who used to call him brother. "You told them about Lily?" he hissed. The traitor bled from the mouth, his eyes swollen shut. "I told no one about her. But others are watching, Dante. You're slipping. Everyone sees it. You've changed." Dante slammed him against the wall of the warehouse. "You think I won't finish this just because I buried too many people already? You're making her a target," the man choked out. "The minute she smiled at you, she became one." A long silence followed. Then Dante released him, disgusted, with the man, with himself. "She doesn't know who I am," Dante said quietly. "She will." Back at the school the next day, Lily watched Dante walk in with Sophia. The classroom stilled again, as it always did. The children sensed it, even if they didn't understand. A predator in a playground. He handed Lily a sealed envelope. "Change of pickup schedule," he said simply. She accepted it with trembling fingers, then looked up at him. "I know." His brow furrowed. "Know what?" "Who you are." Silence. Thick. Absolute. Their eyes locked. She added, "But I haven't told anyone." "Not yet." He stared at her, expression unreadable. Then he nodded once, slowly. "Good." She swallowed the fear rising in her throat. "Why not just keep her with you? Hide her completely?" "Because she needs the one thing I can't give her." He glanced toward Sophia, who was coloring at her desk. "Innocence." Lily's voice softened. "And what do you need?" Dante turned his eyes back to her, dark, intense, unreadable. "Forgiveness," he said. "But I'll never get it. So I settle for control." He left her standing there, heart pounding, paper in hand, knowing the man who haunted her dreams was no longer just a shadow in her life. He was real. And now, he knew she knew. Chapter 7, Blood at the Playground. The day began like any other, sunlight pouring through the classroom windows, children laughing over finger paints and picture books, the scent of glue and apple juice hanging in the air. Lily tried to shake the heaviness in her chest, the tension that had followed her all morning like a second skin. Sophia was quieter than usual, her eyes flicking toward the window more than once. Lily noticed, and so did Dante. He arrived just before recess, his arrival sudden, like a shadow cast from nowhere. No warning. No smile. Just dark eyes scanning the perimeter. "I want her inside today," he told Lily, his voice low but clipped with urgency. "She's been looking forward to playground time," Lily replied. "She barely sleeps, Dante. She needs a little light." He stared at her for a long beat. "It's not the light I'm worried about." She didn't understand, until it happened. The children had only just spilled out into the yard, their laughter echoing in the open air, when the black car turned the corner. Fast. Too fast. It didn't belong in a school zone. Didn't belong anywhere near children. The first sound was a screech. The second, a crack. Lily turned as chaos erupted. Shouts. Screams. Children scattering like birds. And then gunfire. Dante moved before anyone else did. In one fluid motion, he grabbed Sophia, shielding her with his body, tackling her behind the jungle gym. Lily ducked, heart racing, shielding two children who clung to her dress with terrified cries. The car sped off within seconds, but the damage was done. A playground bench had been shredded. A window shattered. And Sophia, shaking in Dandy's arms, her eyes wide with terror. Sirens wailed in the distance, already on their way. Lily rushed to them, breathless. "Is she okay?" Dante checked Sophia over, his hands trembling just slightly. "She's not hurt." But he was. Blood seeped through his shirt at the shoulder. A bullet graze. He didn't even flinch. "You're bleeding," Lily gasped. "I've bled worse." He stood, still holding Sophia, who clung to him like her life depended on it. Lily reached for her, but Dante pulled away. "She's coming with me." Lily's eyes narrowed. "No. Not without me." He turned, surprised. "She needs comfort, not just protection," Lily said, her voice unshaken. "And you're going to need help. Let me come." For the first time, Dante hesitated. Not because he feared her presence, but because it meant letting her in. Into his home. Into his world. He didn't want her there. But he needed her there. He gave a single nod. That night, under layers of marble and steel, Lily stepped into the Moretti estate, where wealth masked weaponry, and elegance lived side by side with silence. And as the gates closed behind her, locking her inside the lion's den, she knew one thing. There was no going back. Chapter 8, the cage with silk sheets. The Moretti estate sat high on the cliffs overlooking the city, its stone walls draped in ivy and secrecy. From the outside, it looked like something out of an architectural magazine, grand, immaculate, untouched by the grime of the world below. But the moment Lily stepped inside, she understood, this wasn't a home. It was a fortress. Marble floors stretched endlessly beneath crystal chandeliers. Security cameras blinked silently in the corners. Every hallway echoed with silence too heavy to be natural, too practiced to be peace. She followed Dante through the halls, Sophia in her arms, past locked doors and unreadable looks from armed men who nodded to their boss but stared at her like she didn't belong. Because she didn't. "This way," Dante said quietly, leading her to a guest suite that was more luxurious than most penthouses. Soft lighting. A velvet chaise. A bed with pillows arranged like a showroom. Lily barely looked at it. "Is this where you keep people you want to protect?" she asked, her tone sharper than she meant. "No," he replied. "This is where I keep people I want to keep alive." She turned to face him. "There's a difference?" He said nothing. Just glanced at Sophia, who had drifted off in her arms, her tiny fists still curled in fear. "She'll stay in the room next to yours," Dante said. "You'll have full access to her. But you don't leave this house without me. I'm not your prisoner." "You're not. But you're also not safe." Lily laid Sophia on the bed, gently pulling a blanket over her. For a long moment, she just watched the child sleep, then whispered, "How did it come to this? A little girl in a mansion built like a bunker." Dandy's voice came from behind her, low and unreadable. "My sister didn't want this life. I tried to keep her out of it. I failed." Lily turned slowly. "You never talk about her." "I don't talk about the dead," he said flatly. But his eyes betrayed him. They softened, flickered. Grief hid behind the rage. "What happened to her?" Lily asked. He hesitated. "She fell in love with someone she shouldn't have. Trusted someone who used her to get to me. And when she tried to leave, they made an example out of her." Lily's breath caught. "Sophia saw it?" she asked softly. Dante nodded once. "She was hiding in the closet. She didn't make a sound. Not once." Silence settled over them again. Lily walked toward him, standing just inches away now. "That's why you're like this. Why you watch shadows instead of sunsets." He met her gaze. "Because shadows don't lie." There was something raw in his voice now, like a wound reopening. Lily reached up, almost touching his cheek, but stopped herself. "Let me help her heal," she said. "Let me help you." Dante didn't answer. Just turned and walked to the door. "You have everything you need?" he asked. "I don't need silk sheets," she replied. He paused, hand on the handle. "They're not for comfort. They're for distraction." Then he left her there, in a gilded room that felt more like a cage, watching over a broken child, and wondering how a man so hardened could carry so much buried pain. Chapter 9, Kisses and Confessions. The days inside the Moretti estate blurred, each one quieter than the last. The armed guards kept their distance. The halls remained cold, pristine, and silent. But something had shifted. Dante had started having dinner with them. At first, he lingered in the doorway, watching Lily and Sophia eat. Then, wordlessly, he'd take a seat at the far end of the table. Each night, a little closer. Each night, a little less guarded. He never spoke much, just listened. Watched. And Lily, careful not to overstep, allowed the silence to stretch like a bridge between them. One evening, after Sophia had been tucked into bed with a story and a goodnight kiss, Lily found herself in the library, a cavernous room filled with leather-bound books and the scent of aged paper and pine. Dante stood by the fireplace, a glass of something dark in his hand. "You read?" she asked, easing in. He glanced at the shelves. "When I need to feel something that isn't real." She stepped closer. "And when was the last time you felt something real?" He looked at her then, and something in his eyes gave her the answer, "Right now." They didn't speak for a long moment. The air between them changed, charged with something unsaid, undeniable. "Why me?" Lily asked quietly. "You could have told me to stay away. Let me go." "I tried," he said. "But every time you spoke to her, every time you smiled at her like she mattered. I couldn't let that go." He took a step closer. "I've done things, Lily," he murmured. "Things that would make you run. But when I see you with Sophia, I think maybe not everything in me is dead." She reached up, gently touching his cheek, no hesitation this time. "Then let me help bring the rest of you back." He leaned in before he could stop himself, his lips brushing hers, soft at first, like testing a forbidden thought. She kissed him back. It was slow, deliberate, Like neither of them could believe it was happening. Like they knew it might be the only moment of peace they'd get before the world came crashing down. When they finally pulled apart, Lily exhaled, her fingers still resting on his chest. Dandy's expression had shifted, open, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "You deserve better than me," he whispered. "I deserve the truth," she replied. He nodded, almost to himself, and poured another glass of wine. "Tomorrow. I'll tell you everything." But tomorrow never came the way he intended. That night, after Lily returned to her room, Dante poured himself one more drink, this time from a bottle left in his study by someone on staff. He took a sip. Then froze. His vision blurred. His chest tightened. The glass slipped from his hand and shattered. By the time 𝐬𝐝 burst into the room, Dante was on his knees, gasping, eyes wide with fury. "Poison," he rasped. 𝐬𝐝 looked to the table. "2 glasses. 2. The other one," Dante hissed, "was meant for her." Chapter 10, The Heart Has No Alibi. Lily paced the hallway outside Dandy's private quarters, her pulse roaring in her ears. She hadn't seen him since the night of the kiss, since he'd promised her answers. Then came the silence. Then came 𝐬𝐝. "He's not well," 𝐬𝐝 had said, voice tight. "He's resting." But something in his eyes had betrayed the truth. This wasn't rest. This was survival. Lily's instincts screamed, and the next morning, her suspicions were confirmed. 𝐬𝐝 let her into Dandy's room, only briefly. The curtains were drawn, the lights low. Dante lay on the bed, pale, a bandage at his neck where a needle had gone in. He looked like a man who'd fought death and barely won. "You were poisoned," she whispered, stunned. He opened his eyes slowly. "It was meant for you." Her breath caught. "But why?" she asked, voice trembling. "Who would do this?" He tried to sit up, wincing. "Someone inside. Someone I trusted." Lily backed away, heart pounding. The luxury, the guards, the silence, it had all lulled her into thinking she was safe. She hadn't realized she'd been living inside the eye of a storm. Dante reached for her hand. "This is why I didn't want you near me. You step into my world, you step onto a battlefield. But you dragged me here," she whispered. "To protect me. And now I don't know who's watching. Who wants me gone. And I don't even know who you really are." "You do," he rasped. "You just don't want to admit it." Lily tore her hand away, her eyes burning. "Then tell me the truth." He closed his eyes. "I'm the reason Sophia's mother is dead." The room fell still. Lily sank into the chair beside his bed. "You didn't kill her." "No. But I gave her reasons to be hunted. She was trying to get away from the life I dragged her into. She begged me to let her go. I wouldn't." Lily's voice cracked. "And Sophia? What about her? She was all that was left. The only thing my sister loved more than her freedom. I promised to protect her. And I'm failing." Lily looked at him, this broken, powerful man, and for the first time, she didn't see the king of the underworld. She saw a brother drowning in guilt. "I'm not leaving Sophia," she said. "I never expected you to." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then, just as Lily stood to leave, a knock rattled the door. She opened it, and found 2 men in dark suits waiting. "Lily Hart?" one said, flashing a badge. She stiffened. "Yes? We're with the FBI. We'd like to ask you a few questions. About Dante Moretti." Behind her, Dante sat up, eyes burning with fury. "Don't say a word." But it was too late. She had already opened the door. Chapter 11, An Angel in the Crossfire. The interrogation room was colder than Lily expected, sterile walls, buzzing fluorescent lights, and a table that felt more like a line drawn in the sand than a place to talk. Agent Monroe leaned forward, fingers laced, eyes sharp. "You're not under arrest, Miss Hart. But let's not pretend you don't know who you're living with." Lily met his stare without blinking. "I'm Sophia's teacher. I stayed to protect her." He smirked. "Funny. Most teachers don't shack up in Mafia estates." She flushed, but her voice didn't waver. "I'm not involved in whatever he does." "No," the second agent, Torres, chimed in. "But you could be the key to taking him down." They slid a folder across the table. Photos. Wiretaps. Surveillance shots. All of Dante. All damning. "He's not just dangerous," Monroe said. "He's the epicenter of a criminal empire. But lately, he's distracted." "You." Lily's heart twisted. "What do you want from me?" "We want Dante Moretti," Monroe said simply. "You don't have to wear a wire. Just keep your ears open. Tell us what you hear. What you see. Give us a way in." She swallowed. "And if I don't?" Torres closed the folder. Then you go down with him. And we'll take Sofia into protective custody. That was the blow that landed. Later that night, she stood in Sofia's room, watching the child sleep, so small, so quiet, clutching her worn teddy bear like a lifeline. Lily pressed her forehead to the doorframe, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. Downstairs, the sound of shattering glass cut through the silence. Lily ran, barefoot, heart racing, only to find Dante surrounded by chaos. One of his men lay bleeding on the floor. Another held a gun. And in the center, Dante stood, blood on his hands, breathing hard. It was him, Nico said, dragging the wounded man to his knees. The inside leak. He gave her name to the 𝐬𝐿 family. Dandy's face was ice. Who else did you talk to? The man coughed, blood staining his shirt. You're slipping, Dante. She made you weak. Dante raised his gun. Stop, Lily shouted, stepping between them. Don't. The room froze. Dante lowered the weapon slowly, his eyes locked on hers. He threatened you, he said. I know. But if you kill him in front of me, there's no coming back. Silence. Then he tossed the gun to the floor. Take him out of my sight, Dante growled. Nico obeyed, dragging the traitor away. Lily turned to Dante. They came to me today. The FBI. They know everything. Dante's jaw tightened. And what did you tell them? She stared at him, her voice trembling. Nothing. Yet. His eyes searched hers. Then why did you come back? Because Sofia needs me. And because, her voice caught. I'm not sure where I stand anymore. Chapter 12, The Choice. Rain lashed against the glass as Lily stood in the study, staring out at the darkened estate grounds. Thunder rolled low in the sky like a warning. Behind her, the fire crackled, but it did nothing to warm the chill inside her. The FBI had called again. Time's up, Miss Hart, Agent Monroe had said. You either give us something we can use, or we come for him. And we won't be gentle. Lily had hung up without replying, her fingers shaking. She turned when she heard him enter, Dante, dressed in all black, the collar of his coat high, his eyes stormy. He looked more like a soldier than a king now. No silver. No shine. Just purpose. You're going, she said quietly. He nodded once. The meeting's unavoidable. If I don't show, they'll know I suspect something. And if you do show? I might not come back. Lily walked toward him, stopping just inches from his chest. Then don't go. Let them think what they want. Stay with Sofia. With me. He reached out, brushing her cheek with a tenderness that broke something inside her. If I don't end this now, it'll never stop. They'll keep coming. For you. For her. I can't lose you, she whispered. He gave her a sad smile. You never had me. Not really. That's not true. His hands dropped to his sides. I've done things, Lily. Ordered deaths. Made men disappear. I've lied, stolen, hurt more people than I can count. And somehow. You made me want to stop. Then stop. I can't. Not yet. She stepped away from him, tears brimming. And what happens when they kill you? Then at least I'll have died trying to protect the only good thing left in my life. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. I made a deal, she said, barely audible. With the FBI. I said I'd help them. If they'd leave you alone. He froze. You what? He asked, voice low and dangerous. They threatened Sofia. They said they'd take her away if I didn't cooperate. His fists clenched at his sides. What did you give them? Nothing. Yet. She moved closer again. But they're watching. Listening. They'll come for you, Dante. Whether I help them or not. He looked at her, truly looked. Why are you telling me this now? Because I couldn't let you walk into a trap without knowing someone might already have a knife at your back. Silence stretched between them like a loaded gun. Then he nodded. Just once. I'm going anyway, he said. But now I'll go prepared. And with that, he walked out, coat billowing like a shadow pulled by fate. Lily stood frozen, watching the door close behind him, knowing that every step he took from here was soaked in blood and choices neither of them could ever undo. She whispered to the silence, please come back. But the house, like the man who had just left it, offered no promises. Chapter 13, The Fall of the King. The Harrington estate glittered beneath chandeliers and false smiles, its marble floors echoing with the polished shoes of men who made murder look like business. Dante entered like a storm in tailored black, his presence slicing through the air. Every eye followed him, some with respect, some with fear, a few with barely hidden malice. He knew the betrayal was coming. What he didn't know was from who. The 5 ruling families had gathered, under the guise of renewing a fragile truce. Wine was poured. Hands were shaken. Lies were spoken in velvet tones. Dante moved among them with lethal grace, but his mind was on Lily, on the last look she gave him. The fear in her eyes. The confession in her voice. I made a deal. He didn't blame her. He blamed the world that forced good people into impossible choices. His hand brushed against the small gun holstered beneath his jacket as he stepped into the main ballroom, 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐿 shadowing him like a loyal ghost. Across the room stood Matteo Carrillo, his rival, his mirror. The man who had once loved Dandy's sister, then destroyed her. Their eyes met, and the tension between them pulsed like static before a lightning strike. Dante approached the center of the room. "Let's not pretend," he said, his voice cutting through the music and the murmurs. "Someone here wants me dead. Do it now, or let's eat." A hush fell. Then a smile crept across Matteo's face. "I admire your flair for drama, Moretti," he said smoothly. "But it's not me you should be watching." That's when Dante saw it. 𝐤𝐡𝐚𝐽, his most trusted man, taking a slow step back. Avoiding his gaze. Reaching for something inside his coat. Realization hit like a blow. "𝐤𝐡𝐽," Dante said, voice cold and calm. "Don't." But the betrayal had already begun. Gunfire erupted. Chaos exploded. Dante shoved a table aside and returned fire as bodies hit the floor, glass shattered, and the chandelier above swayed like a pendulum counting down to the end. He didn't know how long he fought. Just that it was bloody, fast, and full of ghosts. In the end, he stood over 𝐤𝐡𝐽's body, chest heaving, pain blooming in his side where a bullet had found him. Matteo was gone. The others had scattered like rats in light. Dante staggered outside, the rain washing blood from his hands. He tried to call Lily. No answer. Again. Nothing. His vision swam. The wound in his side deepened. The world tilted. And then darkness. Back in the city, Lily sat on her bed, phone in hand, waiting. Praying. When the knock finally came, her breath caught. She opened the door to find 2 of Dandy's men, grim-faced, drenched in rain. "He's gone," one said. "What do you mean gone?" She whispered, her knees buckling. "We've found blood. No body. No signal. He vanished." Lily collapsed to the floor, hands trembling. 3 days later, she stared at a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. She pressed a hand to her stomach and whispered to the silence, "You're all I have left of him." But somewhere beyond the city, far from the eyes of enemies and allies alike, a man with bloodstained hands lay hidden in the shadows, breathing, broken, and burning with the fire of unfinished love. Chapter 14, A Cradle and a Coffin. Autumn arrived like a sigh through the city, crisp and gold and too quiet. Leaves fell outside the school window as Lily guided her new class through an alphabet game, her smile gentle but thinner than before. No one asked where she had gone for those missing weeks. No one dared. Her return had been quiet, careful. She wore loose sweaters now, moved a little slower. Only her doctor and her reflection knew why. 5 months pregnant. She hadn't spoken his name aloud since the night he vanished. Not to anyone. Not even to Sophia, who was now living with an aunt from out of town, a neutral party, a safe harbor far from the ruins of the Moretti name. Lily had packed away the velvet dress she wore the night she first kissed him, locked away the photos of Sophia's classroom, and deleted every saved voicemail, except one. "You're not safe with me, Lily. But you're the only place I've ever wanted to be." She listened to it some nights, long after the city had gone to sleep. The world thought Dante Moretti was dead. And maybe he was. Or maybe he'd simply slipped into the part of the world where monsters go to disappear. But Lily had her answer every morning, rising inside her, kicking softly against her ribs. A part of him still lived. She stood one afternoon at the gates of the schoolyard, watching parents collect their children. The wind caught her scarf, and as she turned to catch it, a shout pierced the air. "Uncle Dante!" Lily froze. Sophia broke from her guardian's hand and ran to the far gate, where a tall man stood in a dark coat, half-shadowed beneath a tree. Her voice rang again, unmistakable. "Uncle Dante!" Lily's heart stopped. She turned, and saw him. Gaunt but standing. Pale but alive. His hair longer, his eyes sharper. A scar along his jaw that hadn't been there before. But it was him. Alive. Dante knelt as Sophia collided into his arms, holding her like something holy. Lily couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. He lifted his eyes to hers across the distance. And in that moment, the world spun back on its axis. She took a single step forward. Then another. Tears filled her eyes, not just from shock or relief, but from the unspoken knowledge. He hadn't come back for vengeance. He'd come home. Chapter 15, Redemption at Gunpoint. The Moretti estate was quiet again, but not with peace, more like the silence before a final storm. Lily stood at the balcony window, a hand resting on her growing stomach, watching Dante below as he paced the gravel courtyard. His men moved in formation, silent and grim, preparing for what everyone knew was coming. Matteo Carrillo hadn't forgotten. Dandy's return had shaken the underground like a fault line. Word had spread fast, the king isn't dead. And he's not hiding anymore. Lily turned as he entered the room. He looked different now, not just older, but sharpened. Purposeful. The ghost of guilt still clung to his shoulders, but love had changed the way he carried it. "I want to leave it behind," he said quietly. "The blood. The name. All of it." Lily stared at him. "Then do it. Walk away." "I'm trying. But they won't let me." There was a knock, urgent. Nico's brother, Luca, stepped in. "They're here." Dante kissed Lily's forehead and looked down at her belly. "No matter what happens, you protect her. Promise me." Lily grabbed his wrist. "You die out there, and I swear, I'll hunt you down in the next life and kill you myself." A small smile tugged at his mouth. "That's my girl." The shootout began at dusk. Black SUVs poured onto the grounds. Carrillo's men moved like wolves, bullets cutting through the silence. But Dante was ready. His men, those still loyal, held their ground. Lily stayed inside, shielded in the panic room with a gun in her shaking hands. But her mind was on him, her heart pounding in rhythm with every echoing shot. Outside, Dante moved like vengeance incarnate. No hesitation. No mercy. He fought not for power, but for freedom. For Lily. For their unborn child. For a second chance. Matteo stepped into the open courtyard at last, flanked by two shooters. "You should have stayed dead," he sneered. "And you should have left her out of it," Dante growled. Gunfire erupted again. One of Matteo's men dropped. Then the other. But not before a single shot rang out, a clean, deadly sound. Dante staggered. Blood spread across his side. Matteo aimed again. And that's when Lily stepped from the shadows, gun raised, hands steady. "Don't," she said. Matteo turned. One shot. Straight through the chest. He fell without a word. Lily ran to Dante, catching him as he collapsed. "Hey," he rasped, voice weak. "You weren't supposed to be out here. You weren't supposed to get shot," she replied, tears blurring her vision. "So I guess we're both bad at following orders." He smiled through the pain, his hand reaching for hers. "I love you," he whispered. "I know," she said. "Now shut up and stay alive." Weeks later, Dante stood on the edge of a quiet beach with Lily at his side and Sofia holding his hand. The sun was rising. The past lay buried behind them, in blood, in silence, in choices made and survived. He had walked through fire, through death, through betrayal. But somehow, in the arms of a woman who had every reason to walk away, he found something he never believed he deserved. Redemption. And when the baby kicked for the first time, Lily whispered, "She knows her father's finally home." And this time, there was no more running.